This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a website or domain, go to squarespace.com/GeorgeHolden for 10% off your first purchase. This thing that we all carry around is like the Swiss Army knife of modern life. It can navigate, illuminate, pay, play, earn you a living, order you food, and it even has a camera. This thing is an overpowered anxiety brick, and now we can't live without them.
Yay.
So it's no wonder that people are turning to something else to enjoy photography. Over the last couple of years, compact cameras, both digital and film, have become popular again. And I even attended a wedding recently where I saw most of the girls attending this wedding were using Canon G7Xs. And it's not even just people that you see in your own life, it's celebrities using these compact cameras over their smartphones. Everyone is loving this slightly unplugged photography experience again, and it doesn't stop there. Sure, you might have seen a lot of Canon G7Xs floating around, but you've also noticed this wild resurgence in film photography, right?
We are thrilled to welcome back New York City's own Les Strokes.
Digital and film point and shoots both fit in quite nicely into what is referred to as the Indie SAS Trend. And while I was way too young for this trend the first time around, I was using an old Canon IXA 70 to start my first YouTube channel in 2006. And no, you can't find those videos on the internet. Now, Indie SAS was much more than just cameras. It was fashion, it was music, it was a whole vibe. And to me, as someone who is a photographer and filmmaker first, I don't really think about that when I think about these cameras. I see other benefits to using something like this, rather than it being part of a certain vintage aesthetic. But if I bumped into someone using a compact camera like this on the street and started telling them about the sensor, they're just gonna look at me like I'm crazy, because to be honest,
I sort of am.
Even those who never experienced this era the first time round are getting a certain sense of nostalgia, looking for something from the past that's somewhat comforting compared to the reality we're faced with now. If you're into photography and you want to feel like you're living in the past, pick up an old film camera. Or better yet, Pentax just made a new one. Yeah, that Pentax. You already know about this. The Pentax 17. It's a half-frame film camera that you can buy now. Brand new. Even though there's a whole pile of half-frame film cameras that people are desperate for you to buy from them on eBay for significantly less money. Potentially a genius move by Pentax though, because this thing seems to be popular, people seem to like it, and it seems to have a fresh take on what this form factor can be. But this leads me to something that I've been thinking about a lot over the last year. I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. I've been using Squarespace long before they sponsored the channel. I use Squarespace to run my store and publish my free monthly newsletter using their email campaign tools. Updating my street photography portfolio using their image galleries could not be any easier, and it's the perfect way to showcase your photography outside of social media. Their easy to use templates and drag and drop design tools mean that you can create a professional looking website with no prior web design skills. Why not get started at squarespace.com with a free trial? And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/GeorgeHolden to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and I actually heard this echoed perfectly on a podcast from Tyler Storman, where he was having a chat with Jordan and Chris from Petapixel.
And I think what we're now seeing is people are getting into other alternatives of photography. Like, Pentax just came out with a half-frame film camera.
Right.
People are shooting analog a lot more than they ever did. Obviously 70s and 80s aside. But it's had a resurgence. People are wanting the pocketable cameras. Like, people are starting to look for alternatives to just raw tech and get back into the experience of it. Leica's doing great as always. They've really accelerated their camera program in a big way. So I think we're seeing that photographers are starting to look for other areas that will excite them because of the plateau in photography.
The race for resolution has come to an end. We're now on to the race for AI features, including AI autofocus and AI upscaling in camera. And these improvements will only really impact the top professionals who require more than cameras can currently put out. It feels like innovation for consumer cameras has come to an end, anything that wants to make them more enjoyable than the pro cameras. Instead, we're seeing the pro headline features trickle down to these cameras in ways that really a lot of people don't need. Those of us who pursue photography for enjoyment's sake, we're not going to go out and buy a Sony A1. We're not going to go out and buy a Canon R1. A lot of the cameras that we're seeing are just dumbed down versions of those flagships. Instead, you can find us up late, browsing used websites, browsing eBay, looking for a camera that looks genuinely fun to shoot with. And those are the cameras we end up carrying with us. We want a camera that engages us in a different way. That's why the cameras that I use for photography are rarely the cameras that I'm using for video. For video, I want something reliable that has all the bells and whistles to make my life easier. But for photography, whether it's film or digital, opting for something older actually creates a much more mindful experience when you're shooting photography. With Pro Kit, you expect perfection and responsiveness, whereas with these older cameras, you kind of embrace the imperfection and actually enjoy the process. These enjoyable little cameras appeal to both professionals and hobbyists because they remind us of that feeling of grabbing the family camera off the kitchen table, taking some shots, and never looking at the files ever again. You didn't care about the result, you just cared about enjoying the process. You want to know my favorite recurring comment I get on YouTube? Like absolutely my #1 favorite comment. Always along the lines of, my phone takes better photos than this camera. This comment always makes me so happy. Let me explain. For a lot of people, a photo should be as accurate as possible, crystal clear, sharp as a tack, and with nice HDR. It should be the perfect representation of what they saw in front of them. Phone photography is tapping a screen. Tapping, dragging, pinching, and tapping again. None of the controls are really there, and with one swipe you're back to your overpowered anxiety brick. There's no mindfulness in phone photography. Everything is instant, everything is processed, everything is done for you. It feels like there's no engagement with the medium that you're using. Whether it's a 2000s Digicam or a film point and shoot, these cameras light up your brain and get you thinking creatively again, leaving some things up to chance. Whereas smartphones are foolproof, and I guess that means they found their target market. The most enjoyable photo walks I've ever had have been with cameras like this, or this, either from the early 2000s digital cameras, early 2010s, or something from 1961. Something about shooting with these cameras compared to the modern tech just makes those photo walks so much more engaging. When you strip away the bells and whistles and all the fancy latest tech that does the thinking for you, you have something that engages your mind creatively. Especially when you go to something slower or even a film camera, you respect the medium and you just shoot differently. When I look through my photography portfolio or I'm curating images to put in there to share with other people, the images are never from the cutting edge kit. They're from the little compact. They're from the budget thing from 10 plus years ago. They're from the Micro Four Thirds that I used for like a couple of months. It's those cameras that I think when you really enjoy the process, you spend more time and your brain does get lit up and you do think creatively while you're shooting. These cameras to me are the underdogs. These are the cameras that I love to use and I love to share with other people. And if you're interested in cameras like this, check out this one here. It's extremely low resolution, but it's a lot of fun to use, so you should check it out.